Hello my dear friends and welcome to Study IQ. I am Joyce Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the issues with the RTI amendments, Right to Information Act. First of all, let us analyze what is the current affair. The Union government has recently proposed new amendments to the existing RTI Act. RTI Act came into being in 2005. So the Union government has proposed certain changes to this Act. So we will see what are these changes, what are the need for such changes, and also we will analyze how these changes will impact the polity of the country. First of all, let us have a brief idea about the RTI Act. The RTI Act, as we said, was introduced in 2005. So it replaced the Freedom of Information Act of 2002. So earlier the act that was in existence was Freedom of Information Act of 2002. So as we have discussed, it became operationalized in 2005. And what is the aim of RTI Act? It aims to empower citizens. So under a democracy, empowerment of citizens is very important. And this act tries to empower the citizens by providing right to information. So the citizens will have right to various information. And this act maintains a balance between privacy and transparency. How transparency? Because when information is revealed to the general public, to the citizens, there is more transparency. So the public will be availed with information and the government will ensure transparency in its activities. So transparency is ensured, but at the same time privacy is also maintained. So there is a clear balance between privacy and transparency. And how is this privacy maintained? This is maintained by barring the disclosure of personal information if it has no relationship between any private activity or if it does not cause an unwarranted invasion of privacy. So, if any information, any personal information doesn't have a relationship between a public activity or an activity of public importance or general importance, it will not be revealed under the Right to Information Act. So, in that way, privacy is maintained as well as transparency is ensured. So, there is a clear balance between privacy and transparency. Now, an important feature of the RTI Act is the Central Information Commission. So, the Central Information Commission is constituted under the RTI Act of 2005. And the jurisdiction of this commission extends over all central public authorities. And what is the composition of the Central Information Commission? The Central Information Commission will consist of the Chief Information Commissioner, that is a CIC, and not more than 10 Information Commissioners. So, maximum of 10 information commissions can be constituted under the Central Information Commission, and this commission is appointed by the President of India. And the CIC, that is the commission, will hold the office for a term of 5 years, and the members of the commission will not be eligible for any reappointment. So these are the features of the Central Information Commission. This can be asked as objective type question in any examination. So please keep in mind the features of the Central Information Commission, and also RTI Act is an important current affair. That is why this Central Information Commission has also become important. We will see what are the amendments proposed by the government and how it is affecting the composition of the Central Information Commission. Now, a noteworthy thing here is that the Jammu and Kashmir state has a separate RTI Act. So, this is in brief about the RTI Act. Now, let us look into the objectives of the RTI Act. The first objective is the empowerment of citizens. We have already seen in democracy, empowerment of citizens holds an important position. And how the citizens are empowered through the RTI Act? Through the RTI or Right to Information, the citizens of a country will be better informed. So, better informed citizens means better vigilance on the instruments of governance. So, the citizens will have a better governance on the instruments of governance or on the institutions of the government. And promotion of transparency and accountability is also aimed through RTI. there will be more transparency and accountability in the government functioning. So people will be more and more informed about the activities of the government. So people will become more aware. It will create a transparency in the proceedings of the government, and it will also provide an accountability. Government will be accountable to the people because people are well aware of what the government is doing or what are the activities of the government. So government will become accountable to the general public, and also there will be a transparency in the proceedings of the government. It is also aimed at preventing and eliminating corruption. By enhancing transparency and accountability, it will reduce the rate of corruption in the economy. And it is also aimed at empowering democracy, making democracy work for people in its real sense. So democracy must work for the welfare of the people. So through empowerment of the people, this will enhance the democracy in the country. So these were the objectives of the RTI Act of 2005. Now let us see what are the challenges in the Act. The first one is regarding the CIC and the ICs, that is the Central Information Commission. So what are the challenges? The Act did not give adequate authority to them to enforce their decisions. They can make decisions, but the enforcement of their decisions is the question. Let us check what is the authority of the CIC and ICs. We will see that the commissions can award compensation to an applicant for any loss suffered by the applicant. Also, the Commission can ask public authorities to take necessary steps in order to comply with the Act. That means the Commission can ask a public authority to provide information on any activity done by the authority. So all these authority is provided under the Act. But what is the problem? If such directions by the Commission is ignored by the public authority or by the applicant or any stakeholder in this regard, the Commission is helpless. That means the Commission cannot do anything to implement the decision of the Commission. So there is a lack of authority to implement the decisions of the Commission. So that is one major challenge here. Even though it has the authority to make decisions, implementation is the challenge. Now coming to the higher levels of the government, RTI is ineffective in many cases where the information relates to higher levels of government. So in case of higher levels of government, the Act becomes ineffective, and the implementation of the decisions taken by the Commission, we have already discussed, it also remains weak, especially when it comes to higher levels of government. So that is another major challenge. Now the third one is clogging of RTI system. That means piling of number of cases under the RTI. There is an increase in the number of applicants, and in many cases we will see that many disappointed government servants, without any relevant reasons, they file RTI. So this has led to clogging of RTI system. So there should be a mechanism that will drain out irrelevant RTI complaints. So with this number of piling cases, it has led to clogging of the RTI system as well. So these are the important challenges under the RTI. Now let us see what are the recent plans of the government. The first proposal made by the government is to do away with the equivalence of CIC and the ECI. So CIC is the Central Information Commission and ECI is the Election Commission of India. So now there is an equivalence. That means the power and authority of the CIC is equivalent to the ECI. But government is planning to take away this equivalence, and the ground mentioned by the government is that the two authorities have two different mandates. The Election Commission of India is responsible for holding free and fair elections in the country. But what is the role of CIC? In order to maintain transparency in the government functioning. So the claim of the government is that transparency is less important in a democracy than holding of free and fair elections. So free and fair elections is more important in democracy than transparency, and that is why ECI must be given more authority. It should not be considered equal to CIC, or CIC should not be considered equal to ECI. So that is the first proposal. Now the second proposal is regarding the tenure of the CIC. We have seen the existing tenure is 5 years and the appointment is done by the President of India. So government is planning to replace the existing fixed tenure of 5 years. So these are the important proposals made by the government. Now let us see what are the issues with these proposals or with these amendments. The first one, it will lead to the weakening of the commission. The CIC is currently having 7 members. And if no further appointments are made by the end of this year, this 7 members will be cut short to 3. So it will lead to weakening of the commission. Now, second issue is with the delay in disposal of cases. If the number of members in the commission comes down, it will further lead to delay in the cases. We have already seen there is clogging in the RTI system because of piling number of cases. And further, if the number of members comes down, it will lead to further delay in the disposal of cases. And you must remember that this delay will be compounded by the backlog in the high courts. And what is the role of high courts here? A number of decisions of the commission are challenged in the High Court. Already there is a delay with the High Courts, and further delay with the commission itself will cause increased rates of delay in the RTI. Now, what are the solutions in order to strengthen the RTI? There should be better transparency at the higher levels of governance. We have seen at the higher levels of the government, the RTI is ineffective because in many cases, the implementation of decisions taken by the commission remains weak at higher levels of government. So, there should be more transparency in higher levels of government, and also the implementation of decisions taken by the authority, that is by the commission, should be made sure. The Commission should be given the authority also to implement the decisions taken by the Commission. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page, and also for any queries related to your UPSC preparation, you can keep in touch with me on my Facebook page. I shall respond. I wish you all a very good day. Thank you.